Two great guests today. We'll have Jay Beeber in a few minutes, Executive Director at the National Motorist Association, focusing on drivers' rights and transportation policy. Believe it or not, that's all under attack. But first, Mel K, journalist, filmmaker, host of The Mel K Show. She has the distinction of having a lifetime ban from YouTube, which I attempted to achieve, but I couldn't quite pull that off. She is on Rumble. She has over 500,000 subscribers. You can follow her at The Mel K Show, MELK Show, and Mel K Show on X. Lots of discussions on global issues. She's based in West Palm Beach. She is an expert on bringing complex topics and underreported stories to life. We will do that just after this.
Our laws, as it pertains to substances, are draconian and bizarre. The psychopaths start this way. He was an alcoholic because of social media and pornography, PTSD, love addiction, fentanyl and heroin. Ridiculous. I'm a doctor, for sake. Where the hell do you think I learned that? I'm just saying, you go to treatment before you kill people. I am a clinician. I observe things about these chemicals. Let's just deal with what's real. We used to get these calls on Loveline all the time. Educate adolescents and to prevent and to treat. If you have trouble you can't stop and you want to help stop it, I can help. I got a lot to say. I got a lot more to say.
I'm excited to bring you a new product, a new supplement, Fatty. I take it. I make Susan take it. My whole family takes it. This comes out of, believe it or not, dolphin research. The Navy maintains a fleet of dolphins, and a brilliant veterinarian recognized that these dolphins sometimes developed a syndrome identical to our Alzheimer's disease. Those dolphins were deficient in a particular fatty acid. She replaced the fatty acid, and they didn't get the Alzheimer's. Humans have the same issue. And we are more deficient in this particular fatty acid than ever before. And a simple replacement of this fatty acid called C15 will help us prevent these syndromes. It's published in a recent journal called Metabolites. It's a new nutritional C15, pentadecanoic acid it's called. The deficiency that we are developing for C15 creates something called the cellular fragility syndrome. This is the first nutritional deficiency syndrome to be discovered in 75 years and may be affecting us in many ways, and as many as 1 in 3 of us. This is an important breakthrough. Take advantage of it. Go to fatty15.com/Dr. Drew to receive 15% off a 90-day starter kit subscription, or use code Dr. Drew at checkout for that 15% off, or just go to our website, drdrew.com/fatty15. So I want everyone to sign up for the Mel K Show, themelkshow.com. I screwed that up. It's themelkshow.com. But X is just Mel K Show, where you should be following her. Mel, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me, sir. Very excited to be here.
So we are such fans, amongst other things, of West Palm Beach and Southern Florida, where people are happy and free. We noticed it years ago. We're like, wow, everyone down here is so happy. Those of us that hearken from California, it is a distinct difference when you go down there.
Yeah, it sure is. You know, I lived in LA for 22 years myself, so it is definitely different down here, and it is very obvious. And it's getting better because, you know, DeSantis and Trump, both down in Florida, kind of brings a lot of excitement here.
Interesting. So, yeah, we have been frequent visitors to Boca Raton and that Boca Raton resort. We love that place. But so great. Enough of Florida talk. There's so much going on. I know we're supposed to talk about cars today, but there's so much happening so fast because of the current administration's sort of shock and awe approach. I'm just wondering if there's anything in your crosshairs today. I don't know if you saw Pam Bondi just issued sort of threw down a gauntlet on a civil action against the governor and the AG. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, she's hitting the ground running. These people have been planning for a very long time. You know, it was almost a year ago that the opposition to them, the Lawfare people, started saying that they were going to go through all of Trump's past things that he said and done, what he's done the last 4 years, and prepare a ton of lawfare. Norm Eisen's out there saying he already has 100 cases ready to drop. So you know what? They're doing the same thing. And she was ready to go in there and say that any state that was not complying with illegal immigration, new laws, would be held accountable. And that's what's happening. I mean, after Trump put in some of the executive orders, they went ahead and ignored him and still paid $59 million for hotels for illegals there when they're not helping American citizens at all, really. So, this is the beginning of a new world in America where law and order is going to try to take back the Constitution to the front.
What are the landmines as they sort of rush out there to sort of change things? You see the opposite. I mean, it's just everything has sort of shifted so profoundly. It's one of the things I'm noticing just today is, the press is taking its old job back of addressing authority, speaking truth to power, all that which they had done prior to 8 years ago throughout most of the country's history. Are you seeing that too? At least that's their ethical sort of crime. That's the rallying point. That's around the point around which they seem to be rallying right now.
Well, I think they're having very little opportunity to continue down the path of hoaxes and frauds. This has a lot to do with a lot of the lawfare that has happened. Much of what's gone on from the beginning, all the way back to Crossfire Hurricane in the first term of Trump. A lot of times these lawyers that work behind the scenes, most people are familiar with people like Weissman and Eisen and McCord and these people that go on all the MSNBC and shows, always talking about charging Trump or lawyers or other people with crimes, and then those charges and those cases either get dropped, turned over on appeal. It's a PR campaign, basically, using the judiciary. And I think that at this point, because of what Elon has done, because of Rumble and some other places, it's just too fast. There's too much rapid response to push back against fraud like that. And people are seeing it very clearly. And I think people are also seeing these rogue judges come out and do things that we know is unconstitutional. It's a violation of the separation of powers, but they are so used to going out there and filing charges or Letitia James throwing in a grand jury or whatever that's never going to go anywhere in real constitutional terms, but it's really about manipulating the masses to believe that something is real. That really then stops the credibility of the people that are trying to do good behind the scenes. And I think those days are over. I hope they are.
I don't know if you noticed this latest, I guess this was a Musk tweet. Judge John Bates, one of the guys interfering with the administration, the wife of Judge Bates is taking money from USAID. Shocking.
Yeah, also the judge in New York, his wife also works with a legal immigrant legal fund that is funded by USAID. You sometimes look at these Washington couples, and it's really amazing to see how many of them are married somebody who has an office, elected or not, to somebody either in the media or a lobbyist or, an NGO. It's really incestuous there, which is why I guess the 5 richest counties in America surround Washington, D.C. But look, people are looking at that now. In the past, you would never think who's that person's wife. Jamie Raskin's going nuts over the Treasury and Elon looking at the Treasury. Well, his wife works there. Yeah. So, this is what the swamp looks like. And for the first time, I think in our lifetimes, we are going to see a lot more than we ever have. And now with Tulsi Gabbard, we're going to also see the D&I position finally be used as intended, which has never been since the Patriot Act created it.
Yeah, and Susan, my wife mentioned something as the mics were heating up here, that somebody was taking issue with Elon Musk lying about the condoms going to Gaza, when in fact yesterday he stood tall and said, you know what? There are $50 million going to Gaza, but we got the Gaza wrong. It's Gaza, Mozambique, not Gaza in the Middle East. And then he said something that politicians don't even know what to do with. He said, we're working very fast, very hard, and we will get some things wrong. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. We will adjust course. And that went down as lying. And that really pisses me off.
Right. I know. And listen, Donald Trump's going to tomorrow lay out the most egregious situations that the USAID has been funding overseas and here. But we have to remember that there's a long history of USAID, National Endowment for Democracy, being on the ground in many countries before color revolutions, before regime change, and all of that. And the American people deserve to know this. So I think going forward, we're going to have a lot more information before the media can twist it around, so that you can hit it right like Elon Musk did. He might be wrong, but there's so much fraud. How can he not be?
Even if it's not fraud, it's just we would like to know what is being done with our money. It's interesting. I listened to French broadcast, and they were like, "What? That's the sums of." They couldn't. The mind boggled at the sums of money that were being sent to these sort of random processes. These random, I don't know what to call them. These. What do we call them? I don't know what to call the group of them, but it's really interesting to hear the pushback is, well, I mean, so Sesame Street in Afghanistan, it's only $12 million.
Right,
only
exactly.
$12 million? Only $12 million? This is a shock to the world when they hear politicians say things like that.
Yeah, I had on Catherine Austin Fitts, who was a HUD in the administration of Reagan, and she has been in and out of the government for a long time. She estimates that there's about $20 trillion missing since the beginning of the war on terror, and that when they go into audit the Department of Defense, that it will really blow our minds how much is being wasted. And then again, where is it going? We have Zelensky last week and Bassett going there this week to talk to him about it, saying that he only got $70 billion when we sent $200 billion. So, that's the other thing that we have to take into mind, is that a lot of our money is going into foreign countries and then going outside of foreign countries and being funneled back into America, be it into lobbying or into our election system. All of this massive amount of black hole money really is the problem in this country, even with elections and everything else. The sad part is when there's an election in other countries that is questioned or contested, a lot of times it comes back to USAID and National Endowment for Democracy as well.
So back to the color revolutions and the USAID's sort of more unsavory sort of influences. I want to get into the global public-private partnership, the global agenda, UN, WEF, NGO, World Bank. What's going on here, and what is their goal? And has this been disrupted? I kind of saw things going that way, but I feel like there's been a little bit of a grenade thrown in the middle of it. But tell me what you know.
Yeah, there has. So basically what we've allowed to happen here, since George H.W. Bush walked on the floor of the United Nations and announced to the world that there would be a new world order run by the United Nations, he actually meant that. And from that point on, a lot of what's happened to our country, sending jobs overseas, what's happened with immigration, all of this stuff is kind of going towards this global governance model that is, most people know the World Economic Forum because they have Davos, but there's many conferences where all these same people go. I basically call it the parent company running the world. They don't have an allegiance to any religion or any flag or any people or any country. It's power for power's sake that has been kind of centralized over all these years. And their real goal is Agenda 2030, which is to have 17 sustainable development goals achieved by 2030. Barack Obama and Samantha Power signed us on to this global governance model in 2015 without the consent of the governed, and certainly without the people of the United States knowing that this was a long-term plan to end nation states, national sovereignty. Kissinger and Brzezinski, Rockefeller, the Crown, when they started down this path, decided that they would actually have regional control above nation states so that we wouldn't really see it. So they've been having these conferences for decades. They only really got the sunlight shined on them during COVID because they were so obviously involved and coordinating worldwide. And during Trump's first term, we have to remember, he pulled out of UNESCO, World Health Organization. He was questioning NATO, Paris Climate Accords. It's these things that they do that circumvent and undermine sovereignty of nations. And in America, the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Now where they're at is that they've gotten to the place of technocracy. A lot of people think that China is communist. No, China is a technocracy. It is communism run by technology that is all encompassing, that is completely full spectrum. And frankly, that was built by a lot of the people that are the stakeholders, as they call themselves, at the World Economic Forum and UN, who merged in 2019 to achieve Agenda 2030. In 2022, Biden and Harris re-upped their commitment to Agenda 2030 and the 17 sustainable goals to the tune of $3 trillion of taxpayer money going into these NGOs and UN-aligned organizations, all the way up to the IMF, the World Bank, and the Bank of International Settlements. And so this is the path. But the scary part is the 17 goals all require track and trace surveillance. And they've already built this infrastructure called the global public infrastructure. And the whole goal is to get everyone on the planet to have a digital ID, a digital wallet, everything that they have on this centralized technocrat-run track and trace surveillance system to protect the planet, and to protect nature and all of that, when frankly they're tokenizing and monetizing everything. And the next step would be the only way that this works is if America buys into this global public infrastructure, global digital ID. And as far as I can see, Donald Trump is talking about maybe building his own, but he's made certain moves that have pulled away from doing it with UNESCO and the World Health Organization and the IPCC. So it is a split. But I think we have to also ask, why do these people hate Trump so much? Well, in 2015, when they all signed on to Agenda 2030, every nation in the world put in amazing amounts of money, but even more than that, the global public-private partnership, which is the international banks and the multinational corporations, basically, with Larry Fink basically being the American face in the Great Reset. He's at the top of the World Economic Forum. It is all about that we, the people of the United States, either keep our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, and our sovereignty, or we don't. And what was happening is we were being pushed through a lot of executive orders that Biden or whoever was running Biden was putting in. They were building America to link up to this global public infrastructure. There were biometric data, ledger technology, all kinds of stuff going into these executive orders that nobody was reading to kind of rebuild everything Trump was pulling apart. So now Trump's going to interject and pull it apart again. That's what I see happening. But the end goal is this, and the truth is it's about trillions upon trillions of dollars invested in this agenda. And the agenda, Donald Trump would say they're not after me, they're after you, and I'm in the way. I will say they're not after America, they're after the world, and America, particularly our Constitution, is in the way. And that's where we stand right now. But they just had Davos, and they're still going down the path of global governance is more efficient. Efficient is what technocracy is all about, than nation states having their own laws, their own rules, and their own constitutions. So that is the struggle. Do we remain proud nation states, or do we become the second of the regional governments? The first that they built, obviously, is the EU, which was all the same people. Kissinger, Brzezinski, Kissinger recruited Klaus Schwab to kind of use the Marshall Fund to put together the EU, and they want to do that with all regions. So we, the people of the United States, and the Constitution are actually the barrier to them having that happen.
I get the EU because the European nations had a nasty habit of breaking out in these horrific wars, and I think they all thought they were going to sort of put an end to that and create a federation. Mind you, my opinion, the fact that they couldn't come up with a common currency or a common debt, really, they couldn't come up with a common debt, that meant this wasn't going to work, and then they're still struggling with that. But my question is, and I always try to think like the other side of the table when I'm differing in opinion from somebody. I mean, what did George Bush think he was doing? Well, if I'd sat him down after he stepped out on the United Nations floor and said, George, what was that? What are you doing here? What do you imagine? Yeah. He wouldn't say, I hope the American Constitution goes away, would he?
Not so much. I think he would say that basically it would be easier. And this has a lot to do with banking, global banking, the Bank of International Settlements, and how they run our Fed.
So why don't they stick with a common economic sort of pool or something that, why actual physical borders? Why do we have to do away with the borders of nations? Why not? Why don't we do away with banking borders or economic borders? There's so many other ways to have done this. And by the way, and so people understand, we're not the only country pushing back. Pretty much every country in Europe is going, wait a minute, they want to do away with who we are. I'm not sure we want to get, what does it mean to be French? We want to preserve that. What does it mean to be German? And they're on it. And Milei went into the Davos and said, you people are the problem. And, sort of threw a hand grenade in the middle of all that. So I feel like it's going the other direction, but keep your comment.
No, it is going the other direction. But I mean, we do have to understand that their model is broken. It is based on debt. It is completely failing. Yeah. So what is going on now is they're proposing to tokenize nature. They're proposing to make everything a commodity. You will own nothing and be happy was the goal. And don't forget that they wanted the world government. They laid it out in the League of Nations. America rejected it. They come back with the UN, the same people, and say, here, now we're going to do it this way and we're all going to get along. Well, that's not the goal. And open borders, open society is so that the people living in the country do not feel pride. They do not feel connected. They don't have a set of values and principles that they share. Easier to destroy a country when they can't unite, which is exactly what we've been dealing with.
Do you think, let's speculate here. I've heard occasionally Trump throw some barbs at the UN, some really threatening things he said occasionally. You think he's going to do away with it or step out of it or make it leave New York?
I do think so. Honestly, the United Nations is a gigantic money laundering operation. And what they had promised was to end poverty, end endless war, and basically have peace throughout the world. They failed on every mission that they were established to do. And if you dig into it, you're going to find that these globalists, and when I say globalists, people have to understand this is multinational corporation boards and the international banks like IMF, World Bank, all of them that are above us, acting as if they can decide for 8 billion people what the future looks like. And they do it through a monetary lens, where a lot of us do it through a humanity and what's best for the people in this country and the world. They're doing it through efficiency. How can we make it so efficient? They're just two different mentalities. One is pro-human, frankly, and one, like Dr. Zelenko said, is pro-controlling humanity. They're very different options, very different opportunities within both those frames, but the globalists want to control, and that is why right now what I call the parent company seems to be split, because honestly, Elon Musk and Peter Thiel and Ellison, they are in the global public-private partnership. They go to Bilderberg, they go to these meetings, but the bottom line is it does seem that there's a break in it where one side wants to go more towards the CCP technocracy and the other side wants to use a technology to better humanity and our future, and they seem to be having a problem above, which is Elon Musk representing one side and Klaus Schwab and the King of England representing another side, and they're very ideologically different. And the one thing I believe that they don't have in common is God and faith. One side believes in God and faith and children and humanity. The other one thinks, again, just like limits of growth created the whole global warming is because of human interaction with the planet. No, but if they make humanity the problem, then they come in with the solution for that problem, and that is the global public-private partnership and what they've been pulling all this time.
Yeah, I mean, COVID exposed, as you said, so much of this, and who knew? And it fundamentally, though, when I think about the dark revelations of that time, it really was centralization versus decentralization. Like doctors have to follow a centralized sort of decision-making as opposed to sitting with a patient and doing what's best for that individual. And always decentralized is better. I mean, you don't have to go back to Adam Smith to really sort of instinctively know that this is a superior way that humans have always done things. And then the overlay that we have now recently discovered is bureaucracy, the enemy, being the enemy, and the adulterating influences on the bureaucracy.
Yeah, and also we have to acknowledge. I have a book out, Americans Anonymous, and I go through a recovery program for the citizens of the United States because everything he's doing at Doge and Trump's doing in D.C., we have in our backyards. You know, in California and everywhere in this country, there is infiltration that is subversive. You know, be it NGOs or no bid contracts, or what's happening in school boards. But we, the people of the United States, need to be the answer. And that is why right now I've been saying to everyone, we have 18 months because they're not done with trying the fundamental transformation of America into this global kind of communist technocracy. But we, the people of the United States, if we get involved locally and follow what Elon and Trump and them are doing in DC, in our own counties, in our own communities, in our own state legislatures, and start to drain our own swamps, then the people of the United States will have a ripple effect, and this country will change, and I believe bring the rest of the world with them back towards liberty and privacy and freedom. Because right now we're living in the illusion of that. I think Tulsi Gabbard will be helpful now, being DNI and actually dealing with the post-Patriot Act blob that has no oversight and has been wreaking havoc on our country. And we have to understand that basically the State Department, the CIA, and USAID are one and the same, and they need to be reined in. But we, the people of the United States, as I say in the book, we are as sick as our secrets, as many addicts have been, and we are addicted to this conflict and chaos of the 24-hour news cycle and reality TV world we're living in. We really have to take a step back, go inside, and realize, the striving towards a more perfect union was about we the people. This country by the people, for the people has been stolen from us because we haven't been vigilant, as we were told by Ben Franklin, to make sure that we were vigilant to keep our constitutional republic. And I really see a movement all throughout the country as MAHA and MAGA got together of like-minded folks that know that left and right, Republican and Democrat, is basically a fraud, and that it's really people that want freedom and justice and truth and transparency and a good life for their family and their children to get together and make sure that we restore the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and our own destiny back into the hands of the people. But that's going to require Trump winning was just a chance for we the people to take back our country ourselves, as far as I can see.
And Caleb, I wonder if you could find the quote from Benjamin Franklin. He says essentially, we've given them a democratic or constitutional republic. Let's see if they can keep it. Something of that order, what Mel's referring to. And please put it up on the screen here. And you're also using code that suggests, have you interviewed Mike Benz on your show?
Oh, well, I know him in real life, yes.
Okay.
Yes,
okay.
we talk the same language.
Yes, I'm hearing the Mike Benz language being coming through here. And so
it's
with
important.
the AA, yeah. I didn't know. And with the AA lens on from Americans Anonymous, or is it Cable News Anonymous, or is it Social Media Anonymous, or we have different subgroups within the AA program. Do we need to gather in groups, or what's the prescription in the Americans Anonymous?
I think so. When I went through recovery 20 years ago in LA, I was shocked to walk into a room where it didn't matter how much money you had, your color, what you did in your life. Everyone in that room knew that they were the problem and that they were also the solution. And I feel like if we have these freedom cells or neighborhood groups that are looking out for where the taxpayer money in our own backyard is going, where we're being, the sustainable goals are creeping in, or the track and trace, Internet of Body, Internet of Things, surveillance systems. These are things that all of us can agree are unacceptable as per our country and our Constitution. I do think there should be groups. And honestly, when I look at all of this, I think the addiction is to conflict and chaos, but I think that it has been brought upon us by dealers and suppliers. And I break it down in my book exactly how I think that worked and how we got here. The demoralization, dehumanization, just kind of the rock bottom feeling I got traveling all over this country, talking to real people. It wasn't about Republican, Democrat, left or right. It was about what is happening to our country, and there's nothing I can do about it. And that's not true. And I want to empower people to empower themselves. And I use the 12 steps kind of being like, okay, so there's problems and they're affecting you because this is your country. What are you going to do about it? And I give lots of exercises. And frankly, and you've talked about it many times, I think that there is a psychological military level. I've read it out of NATO's own own documents, psychological
PSYOP.
operation and cognitive warfare. And we need to go inside and reestablish what we believe for ourselves and then take action where we are. That's how we can save this country and, frankly, I believe the world.
The one dynamic from the drama triangle, there it is. Okay, a lady asked Benjamin Franklin, allegedly, this, by the way, was maybe apocryphal, what have we got? And he said, a republic or a monarchy? And he stated, a republic if you can keep it. So he was saying things like that, I'm sure.
Yes.
But I see a lot of the drama triangle going on with people getting addicted to being victims, so the victim role,
Yes.
and then casting people as victimizers, and the victimizers so-called going, no, I'm not guilty. No, I'm not a racist. I'm not. And that's a sort of a classic situation that we've set up here that we need to evacuate. We need to get out of that.
Exactly.
That drama setup. And you said something fascinating here. I two things I want to get to before I let you go. One, I want to know about freedom cells and how we do that. And then I want you to sort of set me up for the conversation about automobiles and how this surveillance state is going to take over our transportation and stuff too. But let's talk about freedom cells first.
Well, that's kind of the idea is when we were kids, or I was a kid, if there was robberies in your neighborhood, the parents would get together, they'd all get involved, and they'd look around and they'd, help make the neighborhood safer. Well, I feel like we have a real threat from these globalist organizations and from these NGOs and from money being pumped into local communities that really take away the power of the people. And locally is the best way to do it. So to me, I see kind of the same model as AA, community meetings, community oversight. We're having the weaponization committee oversight in DC. Why aren't we doing it in our own backyards? This is something that people can get together and find purpose and meaning and protect their where they live. We need to take this personally. And I see a lot of the subversion is really deep in. It's been for many years, and it's going to take all hands on deck. But there are enough like-minded people that believe we deserve privacy. There needs to be warrants. There needs to be, we need to know who's getting contracts, where our money is going. It's up to us to do that. And it's really just having oversight groups that are similar to Neighborhood Watch, but they're Freedom Watch. And I think it really makes a lot of sense.
And the advent of Zoom meetings lowers the bar to people entering these rooms. So we should do Zooms. We should be we should be combos. We should Zoom and in-person meetings. We should really get this going. Caleb,
I agree 100%.
What Caleb's giving me a direction here. I'm not sure I totally get it. So we'll do we'll do sort of a three-way conversation. Is that what you're suggesting?
Jay Beeber is here, but if Mel K, if she can stick around, I bet she has a lot of interesting insight that she could add to some of the stuff that he's going to be talking about the cars and the everything they're trying to restrict of our freedoms.
All right, you able to stay?
Yep. Sure.
All right, let's do it. Let me I'll intro Jay when we get back from this little break. So Mel will stay. Jay comes in. We'll be here in a second.
Thank you.
If there was ever a time to be rationally ready, it is now. I urge you to consider getting one of the emergency kits from the wellness company, because TWC has 7 different kits that are customized for a variety of situations. Wouldn't be a bad idea to take a look at each, considering, say, what we've just been through in California with the fires. I was happy to have the field kit on hand, and the Contagion kit in particular is suited for what is being predicted to be the next outbreak, or avian or bird flu. Of course, the same experts from the COVID era are freaking out about this potential pandemic, but don't panic. Just arm yourself with the meds you might need if this comes to pass. Contagion Emergency Kit contains ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, azithromycin, Tamiflu, and budesonide, an inhaler that is good for airway reactivity and tightness, as well as reducing viral replication in the airways. Go to drdrew.com/TWC for 10% off your purchase.
And that suggests trouble in a relationship.
Sean, who are you? Like Dr. Drew all of a sudden?
Valentine's Day makes you think about chocolate bone broth, collagen. Think of Paley Valley's grass-fed bone broth protein powder as the chocolate collagen. Our friends at Paley Valley have gone to extremes when it comes to sourcing their ingredients. That's why we love them so much. And we don't even think twice before adding in our coffee. Susan, you're pretty much every day, right? I'm most days. It's made from bones, not hides, minimally processed, low in calories, nutrient dense, high in collagen, which of course is a protein that's of benefit, helps us reduce the risk of sarcopenia, muscle loss as we age. And go to doctor.com/Paleo Valley for 15% off your first order, 20% off when you subscribe. And while you're there, get some beef and chicken sticks as per Susan. Also, the lemon meringue superfood bars are super. She loves that flavor. And I was reading the ingredients on the superfood bars. They're stupendous. They are really, again, as always, everything at Paleo Valley, she's been very careful in what she is providing us. All right. So Jay Beeber is a champion of citizen empowerment. He has been a key figure in eliminating abusive photo ticketing programs, which is, if you're not from Southern California, you wouldn't know how pathetic that all was. He's the executive director of policy at the National Motorist Association, fighting the war on cars, advocating for drivers. Jay Beeber, welcome to the program.
It's a pleasure to be with you again, Dr. Drew. It's been too long since we've spoken.
It has been too long. I think it was on the radio when I last saw you. Yep. And I was complaining about the same thing then that I complain about now, which is at that time, I'm sure I told you, I wanted to take a horse and ride a horse to work because the roads and the freeways did not work. And the roads around the freeway were either restricted by bike lanes with no bikes in it, down to 2 lanes on Adams Boulevard, or surrounding Adams so full of potholes that it was more suited to an equestrian approach than the automobile.
Right, and all of the stuff that comes out of the horse would have been absolutely perfect for LA. So, but
they wouldn't notice it. They wouldn't notice it. There's so much of it here.
Yeah. So no, well, look, and it's worse now. We were all talking about this stuff. Happening in California, happening in LA, all the road diets, all of the stuff to force you out of your car. And, now it's sort of metastasized all over the country. And, the world, the world folks are all into this stuff too. So, it's been bad and it's just getting worse, although there's a little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel, I think, here recently.
Well, the thing I remember I asked, what was the guy's name that pushed through that, another billionaire, it pushed through the electric car mandate by 2030 something in California. Slater, is that his name? Slater, I think his name was. And I asked him, I was interviewing him.
Sosnick?
No. I'm pretty sure Slater, because Caleb maybe look that up for me. And I asked him, I go, okay. Well, what are you going to do about forest fires? Because everything you're going to undo by switching us over to electric is going to be completely flattened by 2 years of forest fires. So why are we doing this? And by the way, how are you going to get the electric grid up to being able to handle this? You got a nuclear plan?
Yeah, there's nothing. There's nothing. And here's the thing. If you look at the data with regards to whether or not electric vehicles are even better for the planet, just in terms of carbon emissions, I don't even mean all the other negative consequences of all the mining and that kind of stuff in terms of the environment and the generation of electricity and wind power and solar power. But if you just look at the cradle to grave on electric vehicles, they are not necessarily better for the environment in terms of carbon emissions, because you have to look at the whole thing. And of course, they only want to look at whatever comes out of the non-existent tailpipe and compare that to cars, because they hate cars, they hate people who drive cars, they hate the fact that you have freedom using a car, so they want to impose something on everybody that restricts your ability to get around.
And I don't know if you must be on top of this, the fees that now are required to enter the Manhattan Island.
Yeah, this is just another money grab. New York Manhattan is horrible about this kind of stuff. They have automated enforcement everywhere, which are supposedly school zones, which run at 2:00 in the morning, and lower speed limits there. And they, as far as the congestion pricing, it's just another way to penalize people who drive cars. I mean, you think about it, it makes no sense, because I'm from New Jersey, so I'm really familiar with Manhattan, and you don't drive into Manhattan unless you have a need to do so. And so it's not like people are just driving there for a Sunday drive or a midweek drive. You're there to do something. They're talking about, we've reduced the number of people that are crossing. We reduced the number of people in the first few weeks. I don't know that that'll hold, but they say that's a good thing. It's not a good thing, because that means that there's less economic activity happening. People are less able to do what they need to do. So, but they only look at one little aspect of it because they hate freedom.
And speaking of hating freedom, I want to bring Mel in here. One of the concerns is that with the electric vehicle, there will be some sort of surveillance system that they could put in place that could sort of, I don't know, undo your car's ability to move forward. Mel, you look like you want to say something.
Yeah, I mean, it's already happening. First of all, just like you have the Alexa in your house, they already have that in many cars that are, especially the cars that are coming out since 2022, 2023, where there's a recording device inside your car. But then they also want to put a kill switch on your car that your car could be turned off. And then all of this, as you guys were just talking about with Jay, you have to understand that this is all part of that Agenda 2030 17 development goals. This is about, the fraudulent part that Al Gore has brought out about that they want carbon tracing, carbon tracking of people. So this goes into another reason they need us to have a global ID, because they have to trace how much carbon everyone's using, and that would then lead to turning it off.
IDs, people can't get IDs. They're unable to get IDs. They don't know how to get IDs. What are you talking about?
True.
I'm confused.
The global
how do you get
ID.
Right. Well,
The
Mel's absolutely right. I mean, this is exactly what's going on. And, she talks about the surveillance that's going on in your car. I mean, we've had black boxes in our cars for years. And so they can investigate that. But now in the cars that are connected to the internet,
Right.
those cars are in real time giving out all of your data. And when I say all of your data, I mean all of your data. They track how hard you brake, how fast you accelerate, what time of day you're driving, what kind of roads you're driving on. And this is all stuff that is chopped up in this data and given to data brokers, and then they sell it to whoever wants it, like your insurance company or whoever wants to control you. And there's no reason why the government couldn't get a hold of this, because they want us to how many miles is this person driving a year? This goes into that miles tax that they want to impose on everybody. Everybody thinks that it's because we'll have to replace the gas tax, there's not as much gas being used. It's because they want to control how many miles you drive. And so when it'll be like tiered. So first they'll say, okay, well, you get this many miles and it'll cost you this much. But if you want to go over that, it'll cost you this much more, and then this much more. And there was a proposal in one of the states in one of these pilot programs to charge people more if the powers that be, our overlords, decided that you could have taken that trip using a bicycle or transit. They would have charged you more per mile for that trip. This is exactly what they want to do. And you're right, it's these world organizations like the World Economic Forum and all these folks, they have a stated goal of reducing car ownership. That is a stated goal of theirs.
Yeah.
Zero.
And Mel, back to
and that goal.
Mel, back to the question.
Yep.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
answer that goal, but also answer for me the question I asked about George Bush. I know we sort of are agreeing there's freedom hatred out there. But what would they say they're doing? What would their defense be? But go ahead and finish the goal.
I think it would be about organization. And again, I have to remind everyone that they would like us all to be on something called a global public infrastructure. You can look, it's everywhere on all of the world NGOs and the UN places. And what they also need, you have to understand, is they need a tremendous amount of energy to run their gigantic data centers that are collecting all this data. So they propose that. They also need a tremendous amount of water to keep them cooled. So I believe that the whole thing about not wanting oil and gas and water and all of this is about them needing it for their own needs and making it like, we got to cut down on this and that. Well, they can't run the technocracy that they run in China worldwide without the amount of energy and water and all of that we need to run our lives. It is very convoluted, but it is about that.
Is this why they've lightened up on nuclear? They've suddenly gone from nuclear bad to nuclear good?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
So crazy.
Capturing all the natural resources. And you're seeing it now. When you go to get a ticket, you have a carbon score, coming off of your United Airlines gives you a 14 on this trip. And you're like, what is it? All of this data, like Jay's saying, is being used to manipulate us into thinking that we're the problem and that they're the solution if we follow this. And it's not true. They just want all the natural resources.
Mel, you are the problem. Let's be clear here. You are, and not only are you the problem, you're running quite contrary to their big plans. But Jay, I was in France about 18 months ago, maybe it was 2 years ago, and I got home. We'd rented a car. We drove from Bordeaux to the coast, and I got home. I had three tickets. I had 3 tickets in the mailbox. And thank God I spoke French so I could understand what had happened here. And it was not cheap. And it was astonishing. And you feel very helpless when they come at you with that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, but they want to bring this all over to the United States, but it's not just, I don't know what the tickets were for. I'm sure it was for you driving exactly the speed that the roadway was built for.
It was for speeding. It was speeding.
Right, speeding.
I was trying to get to the coast.
Right, but here's the thing. I'm sure you weren't doing anything particularly dangerous. You were simply driving at a reasonable speed for the way the roadway was built, but they had a speed limit on it that was different because they want to make driving as slow and as miserable as possible, so you don't do it. And that's what's happening here in the United States. But there are a lot of new AI cameras that are being placed throughout Europe. And these things can do a lot more than just check your speeding. They can check what's going on in your car. Are you drinking something while you're driving? Are you wearing a seatbelt? Are you using your cell phone? Whatever it is that's the disfavored, there are too many people. Are you talking to somebody while you're driving? Like whatever it is that's the disfavored thing, so they can penalize you for the slightest little thing that you do, so they can make driving as miserable and as expensive and as difficult as possible, because they think that by you getting in your car, you're destroying the planet when you go to the grocery store.
You're laughing, Mel, but what's the appeal? Why do people, so drive less, fine, but why do they want to, why is anybody concerned with other people's freedoms? That's such an odd instinct for me, and yet I saw it in full bloom during COVID.
Yeah, I mean, this is also about liberty. What is liberty? What is freedom? I think we've lost track. We've just gone into autopilot. That's kind of my whole thing. We're accepting things. And, they do this predictive thing where they have these conferences and they show you what the world's going to look like so that you just say you have no choice. I really believe a lot of this that's coming from these organizations connected to the UN and the banks, I really think that it is all about demoralizing and having people just feel helpless and go along with the plan so that, they can centralize everything and monetize nature and you own nothing and be happy. It's very scary, but we do have to be very cognizant. I always say to people that are giving their eye scans at the airport, which you don't have to do, that they never saw Minority Report where he has to cut out his eyes because the retina scans. The government is not entitled to this information. And we, the people, have to really look at where we can push back because like Jay's saying, a lot of this is about data, and data is more valuable to the global public-private partnership than oil or gold. And it's our data. And in America, we have to stand up and say our privacy is not negotiable because right now it is being invaded in every which way. But again, as I said, we, the people of the United States, getting together in local groups to push back, in unison can change that. But if not, they're going to be watching us every minute of every day, and they are going to turn off your car when you have used too much carbon. It is, I believe Al Gore's behind something called Climate Trace that he wants everyone to have on their phone to track how much carbon they're using. And now last week at Davos, they were talking about now doing that with water. So now having water credits. This is all so ludicrous. A lot of it has to do with the debt slave financial model, the fiat currency model failing and finding a way to monetize and tokenize nature to continue down the path of the centralized control of the monetary system.
Is it? I want at some point. I want you to tell me what the Serenity Prayer is going to be for the new AA that you've invented. But
I'm using the
old
same
one will not suffice. Same one, okay, all right, if you say so. But
Technology Anonymous.
But right.
Yes,
right.
exactly, exactly.
But hearing you say that, and I'll ask each of you this. And first, Mel, we need to repeal the Patriot Act.
100%, without a doubt. I think it's the most unconstitutional
absolutely.
thing.
Absolutely. There's no question. But here's the thing.
Is that the source? Is that how we got out of the barn here, Jay? Is that really the, when you look at the moment, is that the moment?
It may be the moment, but I think, look, this has been happening for a really long time. Any sort of safety crisis, and we just saw this with COVID, which is, if you can tell people that there's a safety crisis, then you can control them. And this is what's happening with cars. We haven't touched on this, but this is the claim that cars are so dangerous. We have a roadway safety crisis. This is what the last administration was harping on over and over and over again. It's not true because the fatality rate on for for roadway fatalities has gone down by like 95% since cars were invented. If it was anything else like cancer, we'd be, singing from the rooftops. But for us, it's a crisis because they want to control us and they want to control our lives. And one way to do that, because if you think about all the freedoms that you have, you can't exercise those freedoms unless you can usually go somewhere. I mean, yeah, we now have we now have the ability to communicate through these means, but this is part of what COVID was about, which is if you lock everybody down, you can't exercise any of your freedoms. Well, if you lock people down in terms of not having them be able to get around as easily, they can't exercise their freedoms. And that's what this is all about. They hate freedom.
It's so bizarre. I feel so naive. I remember when the Patriot Act was, I really do. And COVID is what sort of alerted me to, sort of startled me into some sort of awareness. But I remember when the Patriot Act happened, I was like, well, I got nothing to hide. And if you have nothing to hide, what's the big deal? So they need some data, need some blah, blah, blah. I was super, super naive. And I guess, I guess it's hard to predict where this all goes. Because when that all, you got to remember when the Patriot Act started, there was no Facebook and there was no data collection, the scale we have now. Who could have foreseen? But isn't it interesting, though, and Mel, that these fundamental philosophical constructs are there to protect us from every eventuality?
Right. And you can't do that. It's just not realistic. And we can't live that way. But the culture and the politics of fear works. And that's what we've seen along the way. But the Patriot Act, first of all, was written before 9/11, and it was not able to pass. Then after 9/11, then it passed. And I just talked to Ron Paul about this. And what has happened, what you're saying, Drew, is true. What has happened is that technology with social media, with all different ways to gather our data, with Alexa in the house and the things in the car, there is no stop on it. So it's not just the Patriot Act that was unconstitutional. The entire DHS, TSA, all of this stuff. I don't believe the story about the shoe bomber. Why are we taking off our shoes in the airports? This is not one person has been stopped this way, but it is a control mechanism. It's to get us used to more and more control. And frankly, I believe from all of my work, it's very similar to what they have in China. A lot of people were involved in building that track and trace surveillance in China. And China is at the very top of the UN, treated like VIPs at the World Economic Forum. It's my belief that they want to roll out that Chinese system to the world. And this thing standing in the way is America and the Constitution of the United States. Or otherwise, they would have just rolled it out under the guise of protecting us or keeping us safe. Well, every time that they're telling us that they're doing something to keep us safe or to help an oppressed group, they will take more and more liberty and privacy away from the whole. And that is the problem. That is why I go through what is liberty? What is freedom? What are these goals? And frankly, the Declaration of Independence is in my book, because if everyone read it right now, the 27 grievances, they would realize that we are in exactly the same place they were. Just now, it's this overriding global public-private partnership that treats the planet like they're the parent company, and we have to do what they say. And we don't. They have no authority. And I think America is going to be the first country to push back, and eventually I do believe that it will fall apart. But we have to be aware, and we have to be empowered by information and share it with the people we have around us, that what's happening with Doge needs to happen everywhere, and we all need to join Doge in our local community and start to stand up for what is right and for what we have fought for, which is equality among men, opportunity, prosperity, freedom, and most of all, to me, privacy and liberty.
We the people, not we the sheeple, will have to have that on the wall with our 12 steps at the Freedom Conference, the Freedom meetings.
Exactly.
So Jay, what is coming up? What do people need to look out for? Where can people sort of apply pressure?
Well, certainly right now, I think the best opportunity we have for pushing back against this, other than your local level, that's always a great place to keep an eye out and what Mel is talking about make a whole lot of sense. But at the federal level now, we have new people in charge, especially the Department of Transportation, whether it's EV mandates or any of these other things to try to get you out of your car. I don't think they're going to keep going in this direction. I mean, there's been some good news. Okay, like right after Sean Duffy was sworn in, they took down the web pages that were for complete streets. And if you don't know what complete streets are, it's basically socialism for roadways, which means we have to give equal and equitable space to everybody, including bicycles. We have to take away car lanes and some of the stuff we were talking about before. But they also took away the equity in roadway safety web pages as well. And so this is a good sign. We obviously have a whole list of other ones we want them to take down. But even more importantly, they have to get rid of the folks that put these things up. And hopefully those folks will be rooted out as well, because, it's only a couple of months or, a year and a half or whatever. Who knows what the new Congress will be in the midterms. And once Trump is out of office, hopefully, a lot of these policies will continue, but who knows who will take over next. So it's really important that people get involved.
Can we get Adams Boulevard back? Can we get those bike lanes that nobody ever uses back to for automobiles?
So good news, Culver City during the pandemic, they took of the 3 lanes in each direction on Culver Boulevard through the middle of Culver City, they took away 2 of the car lanes in each direction, gave 1 to bike lanes and 1 to bus lanes, and only 1 for car lanes. And everything ground to a halt, especially once people started getting back out of lockdowns. And the people came out with pitchforks and torches, and they forced them to roll that back. So it's true, you can make a difference. Organizations like ours, the National Motorist Association, this is what we do every single day, is we fight for your freedom to go where you want to go, when you want to go, how you want to go. So, individual work is great. We can support folks at the individual level, and joining the National Motorist Association, joining us. Go to motorist.org. We actually have a downloadable. If you go to our website right now, which is what to do if you get pulled over by the police. It's something really important that people should know, just in case they ever get pulled over, and it's not just an automated ticket that you get when you come home from France.
And it's been a while since I've been to Culver City, and I was last time I was there before the rollback of the lanes, and it was such a shit show. I just haven't been back. I used to go to Culver City all the time. So, Mel, where would you like people to go? We're going to kind of wrap things up here. Jay has laid down his gauntlet.
Okay, themelkshow.com. I have a great newsletter. I have an excellent free resource page. A lot of the stuff I talk about, the receipts are on the melkshow.com resource page. And I have a show every single night on Rumble and where free speech lives, podcast-wise.
We're here, the free speech lives here too, by the way. That was one thing I came to early in COVID, was I became an absolutist about that. I started interviewing controversial people because I wanted to hear what they had to say. This is ridiculous. So, Jay, you can get it at motorist.org, motorist on X, themelkshow.com, and Mel K Show, not the Mel K Show, Mel K Show on X. Guys, I really appreciate you being here.
I have a news flash.
So
I'm booking a flight from Venice to Newark in May, and it goes through Frankfurt, and it's a lot less miles on United than any other. It's like 395 miles versus 80.
This is like certain white people problems here. Go ahead.
Oh, no. Well, yeah. But anyways, It says there may be travel restrictions in place for this destination. Persons traveling by air to Germany who have been in resident U.S. for the previous 6 months must present a qualifying negative test result.
Oh, COVID.
Vaccine certificate or proof of recovery.
That's ridiculous.
Germany. Okay, this is Frankfurt. Okay.
Yeah, we were in some airport stop off in Germany a couple years ago, and when I walked around there and saw what was going on, I thought, we have another California. It's called Germany. So who knew? So
Florida or Germany, but now it's
poor Germany. Oh my God,
but now
they're
I know
losing
why
it.
There's less miles to go through this destination. I mean, I'm saving 295 miles.
So what do we have to go get? I mean, do we have to go get an?
I still swab our nose before we get on the plane.
That's fine. Whatever's. Swab, whatever.
Or we have to get you another Johnson & Johnson and give you a
They won't make us wear masks on the plane, though, because that is not worth it.
That was the
That
worst.
will not happen. That will not. I refuse to do
They're
that.
still doing this. I mean, I was like, why is it such a lot? People don't
Well,
want
that's
to do this.
bureaucracy. It's bureaucracy does not move, does not respond, does not care.
Yeah, but I'm saving 400,000 miles, so
All right, well,
I'll
good.
swab my nose.
All right, good. Guys, I appreciate you being here.
Always a
I
pleasure.
appreciate
Thank you so
it.
much.
And thank you for your work. Thank you for your show. And I hope you'll come back and join us soon.
Anytime. Thank you so
Anytime.
much, guys. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. You guys got it. Tomorrow, Jimmy Dore at noon. And then, Susan, tell us about your show at 3.
We're going to do a psychic love line with Dr. Drew and
We are?
Damona Hoffman. Yes, we
Okay.
are. And we're going to have 2 psychics and 2 love and relationship experts.
Oh, my gosh.
Callers.
Look at that.
Yes. And if anybody wants to be on the show and have
Oh,
their
it's
love.
Valentine's Day.
Yeah, it's
I
a Valentine's
see.
special. If you want to get a love question answered by Dr. Drew, email me at contact@drdrew.com and we'll send you a Zoom link and you can be on the show.
Keep an eye out for Robbie Starbuck on the 19th. We got,
We might
again,
have some fun surprises from your mom's house too. I don't know.
Oh.
We're working on something. But just just a little. I'm trying to
is
have fun for
Annie gonna call in? Is that what's happening here?
No, I can't get him.
Oh, okay.
He refuses.
All right, well, too bad.
Anyways.
Robert Epstein on the 18th, Ethan Haim and Marcella Burke, attorney. And then when it says to be determined, believe me, Barsh has got a lot of irons in the fire. So it's not like we don't have anybody lined up. It's about getting the right people in the right slots. So pay attention. You can follow us. Ask Dr. Drew and also on Dr. Drew on X. So
Contact at drdrew.com. Get a psychic reading.
if you have any other feedback for us there as well.
And we can talk about your sex life with Dr. Drew.
Fair enough. And we'll see you tomorrow at noon for me and Jimmy Dore and 3 o'clock for Susan's show. See you then. Ask Dr. Drew is produced by Caleb Nation and Susan Pinsky. As a reminder, the discussions here are not a substitute for medical care, diagnosis, or treatment. This show is intended for educational and informational purposes only. I am a licensed physician, but I am not a replacement for your personal doctor, and I am not practicing medicine here. Always remember that our understanding of medicine and science is constantly evolving. Though my opinion is based on the information that is available to me today, some of the contents of this show could be outdated in the future. Be sure to check with trusted resources in case any of the information has been updated since this was published. If you or someone you know is in immediate danger, don't call me, call 911. If you're feeling hopeless or suicidal, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-8255. You can find more of my recommended organizations and helpful resources at drdrew.com/help.